Ladies and gentlemen, shall we please welcome the presidential candidates on stage? Let's please put our hands together for them as they come on stage. Shall we keep clapping for them? Thank you.
May we be upstanding for the national anthem.
Take your seats. To give us the opening prayer is the very Reverend Helena Opoku-Sarkodie here. She is the head of religious broadcast at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, very Reverend Helena Opoku-Sarkodie here for the opening prayer.
Shall we please bow our heads and tune our hearts for a word of prayer? God of all nations, we boldly declare that you have been and will always be the God of our beloved country, Ghana. We thank you for the human, natural, and financial resources you have endowed us with as a nation. We confess that we have not always been good stewards of your blessings to us. We thank you for our forebears who labored to usher us into independence and eventually into democratic governance and the rule of law under freedom and justice, which is our motto. We are grateful for the relative peace which we enjoy. We thank you for all who have given and continue to give social, political, and religious leadership to our nation. We confess that as a people, we have not always governed ourselves to the best of our ability. Sometimes we have allowed our selfishness to supersede our sacrifice for one another. We have allowed our differences to divide us instead of enriching us. Forgive us and deliver us from all that degrades our common humanity. This evening, as we continue the process of deciding who our leaders of this nation could be at this presidential debate, we humbly ask that you will guide and guard the process. Help all who speak and contribute to be mindful of your watch over us and also be mindful of our common destiny as a people. May we all rise from this event full of hope that we can positively celebrate our differences for the benefit of Mother Ghana. Rule in all our hearts alone by thine eternal Spirit, and raise us from the level where we have allowed ourselves to sink as individuals and as a nation. May our end bring glory to your name. We pray in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you.
At this point, we introduce our moderators for this event. Our first moderator is an old boy of Infanspim School, a graduate of the Faculty of Law of the University of Ghana, and he was appointed a teaching assistant at the Faculty of Law and School of Administration in 1985 after completing his studies in 1984 at the School of Law. He has since moved into private practice, but he's been the quiz master for What Do You Know since 1986. Our first moderator is Dan Afari Yeboah. .
Ladies and gentlemen, for our second moderator, she is a news anchor and a program's host with Ghana Television. She is also an advocate for social change. Ladies and gentlemen, our second moderator, Selikem Akulache Apalu.
Before they begin, just one announcement. For those of you who are here, you'll be handed over a questionnaire, sheets of paper. You're required to fill them and hand them over to the ushers before you leave this event. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, over to the moderators. Thank you very much.
My name is Dan Aferi Yeboah, and I welcome you all to this very special GBC NCCE Presidential Debate 2016 with the full support of Star Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, I am co-moderating this program with
Selikem Akulache Apalu.
Now, before we start the whole enterprise, I have the duty to spell out the rules which govern the pursuit of these proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, the candidates shall be given a bottle of water, a pen, and a blank card. They shall not be allowed to bring in gadgets like laptops and notes. There shall be an introduction of the contestants at the appropriate time. The candidates, in introducing themselves, shall indicate why they want to be president of the Republic of Ghana. 3. Candidates shall be asked the same or similar questions. The fourth rule is that candidates shall show courtesy to their competitors, and it shall be a blatant breach of the rule for any candidate to exhibit any form of disrespect to another candidate. Here we expect decorum to prevail. Moderators shall keep speakers on schedule, and this also means keeping track of time. Moderators shall not exceed 30 seconds in propounding questions, and the candidates shall have 2 minutes maximum to answer questions and a maximum of 1 minute for a rebuttal. Thank you very much.
Also, each candidate shall be entitled to a maximum of 4 rebuttals, 1 rebuttal per segment. But of course, at any stage of the debate, if any contestant feels obliged to file a response, that candidate should indicate by hand and will be given 1 minute to do so. Also, there will be a timekeeper to support moderators, and there will also be a timer accessible to moderators and candidates alike. Point number 10. Moderators and timekeepers shall give candidates a signal when they have about 15 seconds to exhaust their time. Candidates will not be allowed to ask other candidates direct questions. The debate will be divided into 4 segments of 40 minutes each. Moderators shall not do fact-checking, and I emphasize, moderators shall not do fact-checking, and this means they should not therefore dispute responses of candidates. The moderator may ask a follow-up question if there is such a need and there is time. The audience, of course, is not allowed to applaud except during the concluding part of this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We shall now at this stage invite the honorable contestants to introduce themselves and to indicate why they want to be president of the Republic of Ghana. I must say that you are entitled to 2 minutes to discharge this crucial obligation.
Good evening, Ghana. Good evening, invited guests. My name is Jacob Osei-Yeboah, the only independent presidential candidate for the 2016 election. I'm here as a Ghanaian and as a patriot and a statesman. I would want to be voted as president because, one, this election is about the empty pride of partisan politics as against fulfilled humility for our nation. It is about change that we are all talking for, but not change from one political party, but the total change of our political system as Ghanaian in a multi-ethnic society. It is about unity as against polarization of our political discourse. It is about all-inclusiveness and winner takes all. I, Jacob Osei-Yeboah, feel that as a nation, we need to think about our political system that is continually polarizing us for our own destruction. Just as Obama said, what we need is to have a democracy that defines also of our tradition. What we need is to ensure that we do not see our ethnic differences as a means of distraction, but as a means of creating work for ourselves. And that is what I, Jacob Osei-Yeboah, stands for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have the second contestant.
My fellow Ghanaians, my name is Papa Kwesi Endo. My life has been guided by my faith as a Christian, family values, and public service. By the grace of God, I've had the opportunity to create thousands of jobs in the private sector. I've served my country as a minister of state. And I would like the opportunity to use this positive experience for the benefit of the millions of Ghanaians who are here in this country. I am by the grace of God, by the grace of God, and education, diligent parents, and also a bit of hard work, I have been able to do a few things for my country. I am asking humbly and also praying to God to touch the hearts and minds of Ghanaians so that they will vote for me in the number 4 position to become the next president of the Republic of Ghana. All the presidents that we've had in the 4th Republic have come with good intentions. They have done their best. But a lot remains to be done. Ejumano Kasiwakan. And so we need someone who will unite this nation, bring inclusiveness, and bring the best men and women together to solve the many problems that we have, so that this nation, Ghana, can become a strong nation, with all of its people prosperous. And I am praying once again to God to help all of us to be alive, to be strong, and to do the right things, and to ensure peace after the December 7th election.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will appeal to the timekeeper to indicate so that we can exactly know when time ends. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll appeal to the third contestant. Timekeeper.
Thank you very much. My name is John Dramani Mahama, and I'm the President of the Republic of Ghana. I want to first express my appreciation to NCCE and GBC for their partnership in creating this platform for us to appear before the Ghanaian people and help them make an assessment of our demeanor, our clarity of thought, and the ideas we have for moving this nation forward. And so I feel very proud that I'm the first sitting president to have participated in a debate in 2012, and I'm participating again. And it's indeed a paradox that the leader of the opposition has opted out. It's usually the opposition that is more keen to have a debate with the incumbent, but here I am. I've been leading this nation for 4 years. We've been through challenges, and we've risen up to the challenges together. We've made sacrifices. We're confronted with the situation of an unstable economy, power crisis, crumbling infrastructure. Over these 4 years, we have together, as Ghanaians, faced these challenges. And I must say that we have made good progress. There's a general consensus that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Everybody, including our international partners, believe that Ghana's growth prospects are very bright. And I want to say that change can be exciting, but it's often the easy solution. Staying the course is more important. It is like when Moses moved the children of Israel out of Egypt. And many times in the wilderness, they wished that they had turned back and gone to Egypt or had a change of course. But staying diligent and finishing the course is the mark of success. And I believe that we have come this far, and we must finish together. I will lead diligently and faithfully, and I'll continue to serve this country with integrity. Thank you.
Thank you. Contestant number 4. Timekeeper.
My name is Ivor Kobna Greenstreet, and I am proud to be the presidential candidate for the Convention People's Party, the party which brought political independence for this nation, and the party which intends to bring economic independence to the long-suffering Ghanaians. I am number 1 on the ballot. Make no mistake when you go to the ballot in this election. We have been on a lengthy journey from town to town, village to village, across this our beloved nation. And the people of Ghana are finding things difficult in all spheres of national life, whether in access to education, health, employment opportunities, or even simple access to water. And so therefore, we have called our journey and our theme for this particular election Apam Fufro, meaning we desire a new testament, a new covenant with the people of Ghana. And the reason why we believe there is a need for a new covenant with the people of Ghana is that so many of our leaders over a period of time have appeared to serve their own self-interest and not the interests of the people of Ghana. And we are a wealthy nation. Oil, gold, gas, cocoa, timber, diamonds, bauxite, fertile lands, access to water resources, strong human beings. We are not supposed to be in the condition that we are. We believe the Convention People's Party is the one party that believes in the oneness of Ghana, not tribal world banks. We believe in unity, opportunity, progress, development, and justice for all our citizens. These are encapsulated in our thought processes, and we look forward on this special occasion to share our views with Ghanaians, to persuade them to look towards the Convention People's Party as a solution to their problems.
Thank you very much. May we invite the 5th contestant.
It's working now.
The microphone is not working?
It's on now.
Then the bells will start again. The microphone was malfunctioning. And so the bell, once more.
I am Edward Nasagri Mahama, a gynecologist who has decided to go into politics. I'm here with my wife, sitting out there. I'm married with 4 kids. And I'm in politics because, as a Ghanaian, I refuse to accept the level of impoverishment that we have in the nation. As a Ghanaian, I know we are the land of gold, diamond, bauxite, manganese, and oil. I have decided to run for this campaign with a theme that says new beginning, new deal, new force. New beginning because I believe that since we inherited the colonial structure from at independence, we've never looked at our governmental structure to see whether we need to tweak it to be responsive and answerable to the people of Ghana. That's what the new beginning is about. New Deal because I believe that Ghana can do better. We used to be #1 producer of cocoa. We are no more #1 producer. With the New Deal program, we will help farmers, share nut farmers, rice farmers, cocoa farmers to feed this nation. The new force, I'm targeting 18 to 35-year-old Ghanaians. They are the ones who are suffering the massive unemployment in the country. And I've likened these young people to atoms. Atoms molded in a certain way give you an atomic bomb which destroys. The same atoms molded in another way gives you an atomic reactor that produces power for useful energy. With atomic reactor, doom so will be a thing of the past. So I'm saying the young people of Ghana, they are innovative, they are creative, and with the new force, we want to mobilize them and mold them into this new force that will bring development, prosperity, progress, and stability. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Now we have heard the introduction of the contestants, and we exactly know who they are. We'll quickly move to the commencement of the main proceedings, and that is the debate itself. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll start with education and energy. Now, as we indicated in the prefatory message, each contestant is entitled to answer questions within 2 minutes. Now, any other contestant who feels obliged to file a rejoinder to any answer which has been put by any contestant may feel free to do so by raising his hand. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll start with Mr. Jacob Osei-Yeboah, the independent candidate. Mr. Yeboah, now, on education, would you say that our current educational system prepares students sufficiently to adapt to the challenges of industry and national development? The current educational system.
Thank you very much. I do not think so. If you happen to read a book, The Confession of the Economic Hitman, you will realize that our curriculum was developed by another nation. And so the output of our education served that nation. And for that matter, it's better for us as a Ghanaians, for us to have our educational system to solve our problems. And that is why in our foundation policy, we've stated that we will merge education and industry so that our education will fill the industries that we have. And because of that, we will be setting up what we call the Bureau of Curriculum Research. That will ensure that the curriculum that our students are pursuing will fit into our society. One of the things too that we need to understand is the extent with which we educate our people. You must educate them so that they can come out as a total being in resolving and solving the problems that we face as a nation. And because of that, we'll ensure that our education will be managed by the Education Commission that will be set up. We also need to also ensure that the technical and vocational education is up. And because of that, what we intend to do is to ensure that we to ensure that the technical schools really have the tools, the hands-on that they need in order to be able to serve our society for us. Again, we will ensure that there must be the gap between education and industry is researched into. And as a result of that, we will set up what we call the jury of practitioners.
The jury of practitioners.
Whereby practitioners in the field will go back to the school and share the experiences on the field with the graduates or the students so that they will understand what is going on.
Their practical experiences?
The practical experiences. They will go back and share with the students.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jacob Osei-Yeboah. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall call upon Dr. Papa Kwesi Indrum. Would you say that our current educational system prepares students adequately to adapt to the challenges of industry and national development?
when the majority of our people, our young people, do not get past JHS education, when this nation, the significant human resource we have, our people, are not trained, can't read, write, are not prepared to enter the 21st century, how can that be something that we desire? And it is so unfortunate that this is indeed the case, because our Constitution, the 1992 Constitution, mandates that we have free, compulsory education to the basic level for every Ghanaian child. And yet, the government, and these past 8 years, have decided that, oh, we will take our time and we will do things according to our own schedule. But the world is not waiting for us. The world is not waiting for us. And it is time that we become more competitive, because the nations in the world, you go to America, you go to the UK, you go to all these other well-performing countries, and you will find that that word compulsory is being practiced, and that they are achieving a minimum of a high school education. So when we cannot have a minimum of high school education, well, the education we have cannot serve our purpose. Indeed, it is preparing our children for failure. Come to my region, the central region, the highest dropout rate, the region with some of the best senior high schools. Now children can't go there because most of them aren't even going to school at all. That is failure, and that is preparing the country for disaster and economic poverty, and poverty of all types.
Thank you very much, Dr. Papa Kwesi Indrom. Ladies and gentlemen, may we invite the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Would you say that the current educational system prepares us properly to adapt to the challenges in industry and national development?
We inherited a colonial education system, and I must say that reforms are ongoing. Every government has attempted to introduce reforms in order to adapt our educational system to our realities. That is how come we changed the formula from the former 5-year secondary school, 2-year sixth form, and then on to university. And we continue to carry out these reforms. I would say that there's still more work to do, but we're making progress. We are rejigging our education system so that it adapts to the realities of a changing economy. Ghana's economy is changing. We used to be a developing country. We're now a lower middle income country. Business and industry is asking for new skills. Unfortunately, a lot of academic institutions are not turning fast enough to be able to produce as many graduates for business as in industry as we would want them to. We did a conference between business and academia, and we made them talk to each other and ask, what are the skills you're looking for? And they said, we're looking for innovative graduates, we're looking for practical graduates, we're looking for hands-on people. Still, the bulk of those going into our institutions of higher learning are going into the courses that are saturated already, humanities and so on and so forth. But they're looking for engineers, they're looking for technicians, they're looking for middle-level manpower, and that's why we did that conference. And that is why you see that increasingly under this government, we are reorienting the education system to put more emphasis on technical and vocational education training. That's why we're investing in the technical schools. That's why we're opening technical workshops. That's why we're converting the polytechnics to technical universities. That's why we're doing the enterprise development center so that it can produce skilled personnel for the oil and gas industry. And so, yes, we're not yet there, but we're making progress. We're turning things around. More Ghanaian young people are coming out and are finding jobs in the world of work because of the reforms that we continue to carry out. Yeah.
Mr. President. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call upon the candidate for the Convention People's Party, Ivor Kobna Greenstreet.
The answer to your question is no, it doesn't. The area of education, being the son of two teachers who later became professors, is an area of natural interest to me. And no nation over the surface of this globe has been able to succeed unless it takes a critical look at its educational system and determines what it seeks to achieve out of the human resource that it has in whatever country it happens to be. In Ghana, they say that 48% of our young persons between the ages of 15 to 24 are unemployed, that it is worse for women, and that it is likely to get worse looking at our demographic structure. So, first of all, as a nation, we have to have greater emphasis on how, in terms of our national development plan, education is going to fit in with clear decisions and data about specifically what we want to achieve and what we want our young persons to be doing with the skills and the values that they acquire whilst they're being trained. But apart from that, there's a vast swathe of our population who have had no education whatsoever. In fact, about 60% are illiterate. So we have to take immediate steps to find out how we are going to provide literacy classes to all of these people who the system has not been able to cater for, so that they will also acquire skills and be able to fit into our strategic plan and enable to build lives for them which are useful to themselves, their families, and their societies. And so it is a complex problem that requires a non-partisan approach and ensure we get the best results.
Thank you very much. Ivor Kobna, Green Street. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the final opportunity would be granted Dr. Edward Mahama the same question. Would you indicate whether or not the current educational system prepares students properly to the challenges of industry and national development?
No, the current system does not prepare students, and I'll do three things. One, introduce at JSS, SS, senior level, a subject I call critical thinking, which will allow students themselves to look at where they are going. Two, I will introduce into JSS, in fact, even kindergarten, counselors, because I see a lot of young people, they come to me, they are from university, they want a job, and you ask them, what can you do? And they say anything, which means they haven't actually thought about what to do with the education they were going to get. So counselors, to counsel them at the early stage, at all levels, JSS, SS, tertiary level, counselors to help students, guide them in the line in which they have skills. And thirdly, we are going to introduce a portfolio of scholarship. It will be in the form of bursaries, grants, loan, so that those who are very highly intelligent and poor, such as I was, to come to the medical school, I needed to be supported by government. Otherwise, you wouldn't have me today, a doctor training doctors and wanting to be president. So these three areas are areas that need to be introduced. Also, we have a high level of illiteracy. At my own cost, I took an Ghanaian academic, and we went to Cuba, because the UN had reported that Cuba eradicated illiteracy in 2 years. So we went to talk to these people who undertook the program in Cuba, and we were preparing, and I'm prepared now, given the presidency, to eradicate illiteracy in 5 years in Ghana because of the language differences. Cuba, they have Spanish, and it was easy for them to do that. So the current system needs to be overhauled. It's part of the new beginnings that I'm talking about.
Thank you very much. May I ask you this as a follow-up? You indicated that you would be introducing a special course named critical thinking. At what position, what stage in the educational strata would you put this particular course?
At the kindergarten level. Because, yes, people need to start thinking. But I will emphasize JSS, SS. For example, a child growing in the cocoa area must learn that he can add value to the cocoa bean, because this is the resource that is abundant in his own area. But our children do not think about what we have. God asked Moses, what is it that you have in your hand? He said, a staff. He said, put it down. It became a stick, because now God said, that's what you have in your hand. Make use of what you have in your hand. We have gold, we have diamond. For 500 years we've been mining gold. We have not refined the gold. I want to introduce a Ya Asantua gold coin, so that every Ghanaian will own a piece of the Ghana gold. That is how you get people involved. And this comes from critical thinking about what we have, what we can do with what we have, and that's why critical thinking is very important and will be introduced as part of the curriculum of our schools.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edward Mahama. Ladies and gentlemen, the contestants at this stage have the right, yes, to bring in any rebuttals or other rejoinder. Dr. Papa Kwesi-Indom.
Well, it is all fine and good for us to talk about technical education, university education, high school education, but we have a fundamental problem. Our children are not going to school, and we're not making them go to school. And so the majority of them are at home, at the beaches, selling. So that for me is the critical problem, to implement the essential element that is in Chapter 6 of our Constitution, the directive principles of state policy, that education must be compulsory, that every child must go. Girl, boy, blind, disabled of any type, every child must go. In every village, every town. That is the essential problem that we must solve. And it involves definitely building new school compounds, but teachers, and so on and so forth, but we must have that resolved. Solve that problem first. Then we can move this to the second level. That is a critical, essential problem we must solve.
Right, thank you very much. It appears, yes, we have another rebuttal coming from Mr. Jacob Osei-Eboa.
I think what we need to understand by the question is that whether our educational system is helping us to solve our problems.
The challenges.
The challenges. Now, it's not an issue of the fact that we have a high level of illiteracy, but it's about issue of the fact that even those who are being educated becomes beneficial to our society. Now, when you read this book that I'm talking about, it was this. I'm
sorry, what do you say the name of the book is?
The Confession of the Economic Hitman.
Confession of the Economic Hitman by?
Yes, by John Perkins. See, if this curriculum was developed by the intelligence of another country, and so the output of our education rather help those countries. But the most important thing, as I would want to put across, is that let's ensure that our educational system will identify us first as Ghanaians. We should be proud of ourselves as Ghanaians, and then be ready to solve the teeming challenges ahead of us as a nation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jacob Osei-Eboa. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall now, Mr. President.
Yeah, I thought that your question was if our educational system was producing the kind of graduates that industry was looking for. And so that it was not about lamenting about illiteracy and all that. Those that are in school and finishing school, are they the kind of products that industry and business want? And that's the question we're answering. If we want to talk about universal enrollment and things, we continue to make progress. Under the MDGs, we have 97% of children of school-going age in school. 3% we're covering with the CBE program that is going to them in the fields. Some of them are shepherds and things, and we're covering them in the fields and giving them education in the night. You can't put a gun to every parent's head and say, why is your child not in school? Or go to prison because your child is not in school. The basic question is, are we producing what industry and business want? Industry and business want more technical graduates. They want more science-based rather than more humanities. Some of the humanities are saturated. They don't need them anymore. And so we need to rejig, and that is exactly what we're doing under these reforms that we're carrying out.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We shall now move on to the second question. May I invite Selekem?
Yes, and with this segment, we will begin with the presidential candidate for the PPP, Dr. Papa Kwesi-Indom. The question is, and it's still on education. Experts say that very little has been done by policymakers to revitalize technical and vocational education and training in Ghana. in spite of its potential. What policies would you adopt to address the issue?
Let me go back once again to the same point. You cannot talk about technical education when the children are not in school, when they are not going. And you must go everywhere. Let me use my town, Elmina. We used to be the people who were educated, and we traveled to other parts of the country and educated other people, trained other people. And our children are not going to school. So if we're going to talk about technical education, we're going to talk about university education, but my children are on the beach begging for fish in the streets. That is the essential problem that we have. And so the solution, as I have it, is that we must start from the first level, ensure that we put that compulsory aspect there. And anybody who will sit here or anywhere and say that we must not make it a compulsory matter for our children to go to school does not have the future of our children at heart and doesn't know where this country needs to go. Our children must be in school. And if all of our children are to be in school, then we must have, as the PPP has it, same quality school compounds from kindergarten to the end of senior high school. And inside all of those schools, we will have opportunities for people to have technical and vocational education with the facilities right there, so that every child can go to school from kindergarten to the end of senior high school. They'll become more mature. They will have the opportunity to learn woodwork, to learn metal works, and all of those other kinds of. And I have experienced that kind of education in the US, in a public school system. We can do it here. They are not any better people than we are.
Right, we'll move to the presidential candidate for the NDC, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. The question is, experts say that very little has been done by policymakers to revitalize technical and vocational education and training in Ghana in spite of its potential. What policies would you adopt to address the issue?
Indeed, the question should be, what policies are we adopting? I don't know when this report is from, of these experts that you speak of, but if you look at latest assessments of technical education, we're making very good progress. And that's because we're investing in technical education. We are investing more in technical education than ever in the history of Ghana. What happened before was, in the past, you go to technical schools and they don't have the basic tools. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the workshops. You go to the polytechnics and the laboratories were there. They didn't have the equipment. Go to all the polytechnics today and ask them. We have put new amateur equipments in their laboratories. These amateur equipments teach them process engineering, teach them all the different kinds of engineering, mechanical, electrical, hydraulic engineering, and everything. We're building new workshops for the polytechnics in preparation to converting them to technical universities. And we're turning them into technical universities to make them attractive. Because in the past, students have believed that if you went into technical and vocational education training, then it means you were the one who had dropped out. You were not brilliant enough to go into university, and that's why you took that track. So we say, okay, fair enough. We will make them universities. They'll get a degree like you who went to the traditional universities that we went to. And so it will be more attractive for them. One of the policies we've given for the conversion to technical universities is that the majority of the courses run will continue to be technical, engineering, and science-based. Besides, we're giving scholarships. We have the master's program, which is giving scholarships to students who are studying engineering and science, so that we can shift more of our young people into the area of engineering, science, technical, vocational education, and training. And we're doing a lot of work in that area. I don't know when this report is from, but if you have the latest report, you would find that very massive investment has been made. We recently did a project with the African Development Bank to overhaul the facilities in more than 20 technical schools, providing them with the equipment and tools, training their teachers, providing accommodation to their teachers in order to make them comfortable to be able to teach these students. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
We'll move to the presidential candidate for the CPP, and the same question goes to you. What policies would you put in place?
Well, I think the policies that we would adopt would be part of a national agenda and a detailed plan that would emanate from this national enhanced national development plan that we would implement when we assume office in January 2017. Because you have to have the entirety of the problems that face you as a nation at hand. Make a detailed analysis of the problems that are faced and how you are going to tackle those problems by the solutions that you are going to offer. And clearly, technical and vocational institutions are critical components to ensuring that people have the necessary skills and capacity to earn salaries, begin businesses, and engage in activities which will earn them revenue and allow them to be independent human beings who can contribute to society. And therefore, it is about allocation of scarce resources of state to this very important sector that we would choose to try and enhance, revitalize, build on the good work of successive governments who have done things in that area, and try and engage the population to pay more attention to that area and to enhance the skills and develop them further to become more relevant to the kind of society that we have at the moment.
Thank you. We'll move on to the PNC. Dr. Edward Mahama.
The problem I see is that we've never really given the kind of technical training to our young people that gives them the confidence. I'll give you a specific example. Our first president built up Akosombo Dam. When we're going to repeat it in Bui, we didn't use the people that were used to build the dam. We had to go and bring the Chinese. So it looks like our training is not always preparing us to go and do things that we need to do. And that is why I said earlier on that our training, whether in the technical or business area, wherever the training is, it has to be linked with industry. It has to be linked in such a way that the person undergoing that training has the ability to get the practical experience while they are going on. I have some people in the polytechnics, for example, they'll come to the clinic, they want a job. Now, you put them in the laboratory, for example, and they don't seem prepared, and it looks like they were just doing theory, no practical experience. So basically, our education is flawed in that there is too much book long and too little practice. So even the technical graduates don't have the confidence to undertake projects that we need to take to build our nation. And that is why I think the most important thing to do is to have a very close relationship between industry out there and the technical institutions, so that during their training they must be attached to particular industries so that they gain some confidence, so that we don't always have to go and bring so-called experts to do the things that we need to do.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the independent candidates. Jacob Osei-Yeboah, what policies would you adopt to address the issue of revitalizing technical and vocational education and training in Ghana?
Thank you. The most important thing is the priority that we set as a nation. With our president commissioning a lot of SHS school, is actually an indication of where our priority lies as a nation. And so what we need to do is to ensure that we upgrade the existing vocational school. Last week I was at Sugakope, the vocational school over there. When you look at the facility and everything, there's nothing to write home about. And so there's the need for us to refocus as a country in terms of our strategic content and process, and then in the context of upgrading these vocational and technical schools. As an engineer myself, I realized that I could describe how a motor can run without actually having a feel of it. And I think that in terms of strategic process, we must ensure that we have the needed tools for the students to have a feel of whatever thing that they are doing, instead of chew and pour. If you really want to appreciate what is happening to our educational system, this same intelligence, the problem that we have now, having a lot of over 200,000 students without jobs, is indeed an economic and national security threat. And that is why we need to even rearrange those who are not having jobs to have specific jobs that can fit into our society whilst we try to upgrade these technical and vocational issues. It's not an issue about national development agenda. How can political parties with different political ideologies come together and carve out a national development agenda? It can take somebody like me, a no-party president, to be able to lead the right national development agenda for our country that can really assess this problem and bring it to fore so that we'll be able to help solve this problem. Let us make sure that these students have practical experience.
Right. A follow-up. Mr. Osayeboa, you talk about reorienting students. What exactly do you mean?
Just as all of us have realized that we have a lot of students coming us from the arts. I mean, let me use as an example. If somebody has gone and learned Spanish, how can we get a Spanish job in Ghana? And so such a person must be reoriented. I mean, the person can be reoriented in such a way that that person can go into grass cutter rearing, which is also important. We need to make sure that at least we find jobs for these lazy hands. We're talking about, in terms of agriculture. We're talking about different forms of agriculture that we can reorient these students in. Other than that, it's a national security threat. One day, these students will come up, and then what will happen to us as a nation will not be something good. Again, we also have to make sure that we try to have unemployment benefits for this in terms of trying to mitigate. But what our national, our policy document states is that you must be above 25 years, and again, you must be, we should realize that you have not accepted any reorientated particular job before you can enjoy that.
At this point, I will announce that if you have, okay, Your Excellency, you have a rebuttal. You can go ahead. I have 1 minute.
I just wanted to make a correction. My brother talked about the rollout of secondary schools as if that was our priority. It was the rollout of secondary school is to solve the problem of access, because a lot of us children are stopping at GHS and not being able to continue because there's not enough space in SHSs. But we're not doing it to the exclusion of technical and vocational education training. Indeed, I've said that of the 200 new secondary schools we're building, 30% of them, 60 of them across the country in all regions should be made technical schools. And so we're not developing secondary education at the expense of technical and vocational education training. Indeed, we believe that the reorientation he's talking about is a reorientation of our young people to see technical and vocational education training as not a failure, but also as a course option that makes you employable when you come out. Most of them are going into university and doing some courses where we have achieved saturation. But there's a huge demand for the products of technical and vocational schools now. And so how to do that reorientation is what this government is promoting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Indum, you have a rebuttal?
Yes, well, let me give you the practical perspective. I am an employer. I'm an employer. And that is why I keep emphasizing. I want children grow up who can read, write, count, do arithmetic, use a computer. And that is why I'm insisting that the people, all of our children must go to the end of senior high school, have their minds be open, because I employ those people. I train those people. I give them skills. But whether they read history or psychology or whatever it is, as long as they can read, they can write, they can count, they can use a computer, they can think, I can use them. So let us not try to, if you will, engineer all sorts of other things. Let's make sure that most of our children, everybody goes through school, everybody gets a good preparation, and then we, the employers, we will add what is it that they need. That's a practical, hands-on perspective.
Thank you. Dr. Mahama, you can go ahead.
Yes, part of the problem is financing of education. You know, you can have the school there, but if the children don't have the money, that's why in my first presentation I talked about scholarships. To give myself as an example, When I was invited to come to Legon from Tamale Secondary School, I had no money for transportation to get here. A lot of young people drop out of school. Their parents have died, something has happened. There is no money. So while we are looking at technical education, even those to go to technical education need funding. And I think that that is an area that is crucial. You can have the institutions there, but if they don't have the money to access it. And believe you me, for example, we are talking about supplying books, exercise books, to JSS students. I know right here in Accra, parents are buying the exercise books when government supposedly has supplied them.
The time's up. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next thematic area.
Yes. Your machine has broken down here.
You do have a rebuttal.
I don't have a rebuttal, except to tell you that your machine has broken down here.
Right. Timekeeper.
It says your machine. We can't see the time.
You can't see the time.
No, your machine here is defective.
Okay, shall we now?
So shall we have the technical guys
to address
the
this
timekeeper?
I don't know about my colleagues, but for me it's better not to see the time. I think 2 minutes is too short. 2 minutes is too short for the answers, so I normally don't like to see the time. Let's just talk.
Honestly, Mr. President, we are pressed for time.
Yeah, so let's go.
Yes. Has it been rectified?
No.
But can we proceed?
Yeah,
yes.
Let's proceed.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll tackle a very crucial segment in the affairs of this country, and it has to do with energy. Now, without dispute, we have had power crisis in this country. We've had power crisis in this country. Now, Mr. President, what sustainable and affordable measures do you think you can lay out to resolve this rather perennial issue?
Indeed, 2 minutes to answer this question. I could give you a whole lecture on the power sector. It's a very complicated hydra-headed problem, and we've had to do a lot of work to resolve the power crisis. It has to do with generation. It has to do with the kind of fuel that you're using, and it also has to do with the finances of the utility companies. The first problem we were confronted with was lack of sufficient generation. And so what we did was fast track 850 megawatts of generation very quickly using alternative fuels that we had previously not used. And then the next thing was to get our own gas, and that's why we built the Trouble gas processing plants. Today, happily, some of the gas we're getting is coming from our own sources. And today, the good news is that we're getting a flow of gas from the West African gas pipeline, and so our Sogli is working. But the most crucial thing is that for many years, we had not charged a realistic tariff. And so because of that, the balance sheets of the utilities were all in the red. No bank was prepared to give them any money. They couldn't establish LCs for fuel to produce power. And so these were the three huge hydra-headed problems we were tackling. Now, the first thing is we fast-tracked power, and that's why we brought Ameri, we brought car power, we fast-tracked the Cone thermal plants and all that. And so, also with the investment we had made in Atuabo, we had started getting our own gas. And so we could bring extra power into the system. And that has stabilized the situation. We also came up with an automatic tariff adjustment, which PRC was supposed to implement. And so you'll find that tariffs were adjusted according to a certain formula. We had to make a correction in order to make it more understandable to people and not as punitive as it was. But I still think that we have a lot of work to do on tariffs, because our tariffs are the reverse. Our tariffs are the reverse. Businesses pay more, residents shall pay less. Everywhere in the world, residences pay more and businesses pay less so that they can generate more employment. Unfortunately, we don't have that, so it will take time to reverse it. The final thing is we're working to free the balance sheets of the utilities I don't know, 2 minutes. Well, thank you.
Mr. President. I'm sorry, Mr. President, a follow-up very quickly. You indicate that one of the problems has been the failure to charge appropriate tariffs for many years. Now, can you tell us exactly when this turbulent problem actually started?
For almost 2 decades. For almost 2 decades. And the point is, if you give a subsidy, the payment for the subsidy should come from somewhere. And so you cannot give a subsidy that you can't finance. And so you keep tariffs low, and you don't reimburse the utility companies for the losses they are making, and you expect that they will continue supplying power, you know. And it was an unsustainable subsidy, and so we needed to rejig the system. And so I've had to take some quite bold, painful decisions, but that is to hold the system so that we can have enough power. After we have enough power, we can talk about who deserves a subsidy and who does not deserve a subsidy and all that. But it's a lot of work, diligent work. It will take years to come up with a formula that is the best, that rewards businesses like his and other businesses with cheap power, with cheap and affordable power. The days of Akosombo are gone. Unfortunately, Ghanaians have been used to cheap power. Akosombo is hydro and is the cheapest power you can get, and we've been used to it. Currently, a lot of our power is coming from thermal sources, and thermal generation is more expensive than hydro.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The same question, ladies and gentlemen, will be put to Mr. Ivor Kobna Greenstreet. Now, you want to be president of the Republic of Ghana. We have indicated that we have power crisis. Indeed, you are witness to the situation of power crisis in this country. What sustainable and affordable measures are you going to put in place to solve this malevolence?
Well, apart from the complex problems that exist at the moment in terms of the current infrastructure and how to maintain it and continue with it, we have a vision of the future, and our vision revolves around renewable energy resources. If you look at the United States, for instance, by 2030, they intend to have 20% of their energy mix from wind. They are investing in a wind park in South Wyoming of 1,000 hectares with 1,000 wind turbines to produce 3,000 megawatts of energy. South Korea intend to have about 2.4 gigawatts of offshore wind power. And here in Ghana, we are blessed, and we must take advantage of a free gift of nature, and that is a wind corridor stretching 1,000 kilometers. Studies indicating that it is the most reliable wind corridor over the whole of Africa, and that it stretches along a parallel mountain range. And the reason why we know there's so much wind there, apart from the studies, is that you regularly hear of tidal waves which occur there, and people putting stones on their roofs. And so, the reason why there is wind, in fact, over the entirety of the surface of the globe is because the Earth, as you know, sits on an axis, and whilst on that axis revolves at 1,040 miles per hour and orbits the sun at 67,000 miles per hour. Therefore, there is wind all over the surface of the Earth. We don't feel it because of gravity. We will install 9,900 turbines along that wind corridor, each generating 3 megawatts of power, totaling 29,700 megawatts of power. And with a reduced wind outage to 66%, we should be able to generate now 9,000 megawatts of energy over a period of time. So apart from that, we have done studies in solar and in other areas of renewable energy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Greenstreet. Now, you indicate that you are going to establish 9,900 turbines. A whopping 9,900 turbines.
Whopping indeed. I like the word whopping.
A whopping 9,900 around the wind corridor. Now, have you considered the costs?
The cost
would be involved
will be massive
in this project.
The cost will be massive,
and you know how you're going to fund it?
And run into billions. We have done our own studies as to how we will fund it. Number one, we shall repeal the petroleum law that was recently passed in Parliament, which institutes what's called the Ghana Hybrid Royalty Taxes System for collecting revenue from the oil companies. Between the years 2010 to 2015, Ghana earned $3 billion from this system of collecting royalties and taxes. We can't even collect petty taxes from our own citizens, let alone we all know that multinationals are experts in failing to pay the proper amounts of taxes. There is a far better system, which is called the production sharing formula, utilized by other progressive African countries like Angola, like Libya, like Cote d'Ivoire. It is like owning a piece of land, somebody coming to grow corn on that land, and you share in the proceeds from the corn. If we had adopted that system between the years 2010...
We are grateful to you, Mr. Greenstreet. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we now invite Dr. Edward Mahama? We have a problem about power. How are you going to solve this problem when you're voted as president? Sustainable and affordable means of solving.
Thank you. I'm glad the president has admitted that this problem has been going on for over 2 decades. His party, NDC, has had 16 years out of those 2 decades. And I'm agreeing with him because I have kept a book, Power On, Power Off, since 1995. So the problem was getting worse, and nobody did anything about it. We will solve the problem by an energy mix. Will not, in fact, Akosombo we know has an installed capacity that we're not getting because of the water level. So one of the easiest things to do, and he said also that hydro is the cheapest. We have to talk to our brothers in Burkina Faso, because if we talk with them and they allow the water to come, we can actually give them more energy for the dams that they have built than they are generating themselves. Then, you know, Dr. Nkrumah wanted to mix atomic reactors in our power supply system. We need to go back to that. Solar is an area where we have abundant solar and we are not using it. So if we have a fair mix, wind, solar, hydro, we'll be able to solve this. Incidentally, we all know that the installed capacity now seems to be adequate. What is wrong is actually the ability of, for example, VRA to pay, to get the fuel to generate the power. And as I've already mentioned, out of the 6 turbines we have at Volta VRA, only 2 are working. So basically, making sure that we have the money, you know, and that comes to the gas supply. The gas supply, I'm happy that the West Africa gas pipeline is on, but we ourselves have to create a facility for storing the gas, you know.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edward Mahama. Now is the turn of the independent candidate, Mr. Jacob Osei Yeboah. The sustainable and affordable methodologies you would lay out to solve the power crisis in this country when you are voted into power.
Thank you. In other words, we are talking about the strategic
method
policy.
And in fact, I think that the crucible is sustainable and affordable.
Yeah. And so, first, what we need to understand that, you know, energy is a factor of our population and lifestyle. Now, once we have this in mind, that is when we will be able to develop the strategic direction. First and foremost, for the sustainability, much is dependent on the generation and then conservation. But in Ghana at the moment, we are not doing much of conservation, which will rather even help the consumer and reduce the amount that the consumer pays and so on and so forth. The affordable power is actually dependent on the energy mix. Now, they've mentioned some of them, but as a nation, we need to begin to think about solar, because we are at the center of the earth. The other aspect is also about biogas. Biogas, which we can generate energy out of even our human waste. Even from the lavender hill, we can generate a lot of biogas that can actually help us. Now we need to also explore new technologies. Now you can build a hydropower without building a dam, which is quite instructive. That as a nation, we can also explore that. We have what we call petcoke, which is a byproduct of refineries. And for that matter, we can explore petcoke in order to bring the energy mix. One of the things that I think as a nation we ought to be careful is how we want to use our gas purposely for power. Because gas can actually help us to develop our industrial base. And it's very important, like fertilizer and so on and so forth. And for that matter, one of our policy is to ensure that the gas that we have, 50% would have to go into energy generation and 50% would have to go into supporting our agribusiness and then industrial bases.
Dr. Papakwesi Indrom. The bell?
Well, when you first asked the question, you made the statement that we had a power crisis. Well, we have HAVE, a power crisis still in this country. And let me give you a perspective, practical one. When we all knew and were crying about Doomsaw, had a couple of factories. They lost 40% of their production capacity. We lost money. Now that, as the president says, he has fast-tracked power to be generated, now we are paying 50% more for the power. So we have exchanged one problem with another. So the crisis is still there for those in the productive sectors of the economy. Now, the issue that has not been resolved is in solving the problem in the entire chain, not just generation, but transmission, distribution, billing, and collection. And when you say billing and collection, then government comes in. Government is the biggest debtor. If government were to pay its bills, the power companies in Ghana will begin to become okay. Unless and until that happens, we'll just be talking and discussing this matter. So that first solution must come from there. And then we must find a better way of financing the billions of dollars that we need to solve the entire power chain in Ghana. And we must give ourselves time, not be in a hurry to say we have solved the problem. Because you solve one part of it, the other parts are still there. So we're talking about putting in a comprehensive solution and letting Ghanaians know that at a certain period of time, 5 years, this problem will really be solved in the entire power chain. And then, if I may finally just add that solar power is one that we should provide tax incentives for people to invest in it and use solar power as an alternative.
Thank you very much, Dr. Papakwesi Indrom. Yes, a rejoinder from Mr. President.
If I may, I just, the NDC came into power in 1992. The power crisis, the first one we suffered was in 1983, and so the NDC's period in power has not covered that whole period. But I just wanted to say there are two kinds of power. You have base power and you have supplementary power. No developed country developed on renewable energy. None. Give me one single example. They have base power. That power is industry and business, and they have supplementary power, that is wind and the other forms of power. Because these renewable energies are not constant. There are times when the wind stops and you go to zero with wind power. There are times when it's a rainy season and you're not getting enough sunlight, or in the night you don't have power because solar in the night you have to store in batteries. And so you need base power, which is hydro or thermal or nuclear, and then you can put in supplementary power. We have the Renewable Energy Act, which says 10% of our total power mix should come from renewable sources, which is what we're pursuing. We're putting in solar systems. We have done the wind mapping. The maximum we can get from wind, because we're close to the equator is not windy. The maximum the experts say we can get from wind is 100 megawatts. That's it. So if you put 9,000 windmills, they'll just be standing there and you won't catch the wind.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you.
But I just wanted to correct something Dr. Andu said. If we
30 seconds.
Yes, if we struck a balance with the utilities, it might be that government does not owe them, because government has guaranteed loans for the utilities. When they have to build new equipment, refurbish their turbines and things, government is the one that gives the guarantees, and eventually the utilities don't pay, government ends up paying. And so if you just sit and just simply say that government is the biggest debtor, and we're paying them 36 million Ghana cedis every quarter, you know, to be able to defray any debts that government companies owe the utilities.
Thank you very much.
If we struck a balance, probably they might owe government, not government owing them.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you.
Yes,
yes,
my rebuttal.
Yes, a rebuttal.
Yes. Firstly, I want to say that it's a complex problem that we have been dealing with energy over this period of time. And I know that Dr. Indum will be aware of it, because I remember when he was Minister of Energy, we had serious doomsday in the country, and I remember suffering. So it's not about one individual, it's about a process over a period of time. The second important point, and actually the main reason for my rebuttal, is for me to finish my story on the wind. Now, the turbines that we will install, because we will be elected come January 2017, the turbines will be 120 meters high, and they'll be 85 meters in diameter, and they'll be stationed 300 meters triangular along the entirety of this 1,000 kilometer stretch. With 66% wind outage, we should still be able to produce this 9,000 megawatts of energy free and add it to all the existing things that we're doing. Not only that, because our studies are about forward and backward linkages, the fiberglass will be obtained from a reactivated Abosu glass factory, because as I'm sure you're well aware, fiberglass is made from molten glass.
Yes, thank you very much, the Green Street. It appears we have a refutation from, yes, Dr. Papa Kuswindu.
Well, I'm surprised, Mr. Greenstreet. I don't know which year he is talking about, but certainly not under my tenure. And under my tenure is where a lot of the gas and oil revenue that he is looking to use. That is where we did that work for that to come into fruition. But the important point here that I just wanted to raise, it still has to do with the debt. And once again, let me, just as he said, I was energy minister, so I know that indeed it is government that made the decisions to say, I own these facilities. And if you own these facilities and you finance them, those problems, you can't go and blame those people for it. But government used the power. It used the power, and it did not pay, and it is still not paying. So the debt is still there. So let government solve the debt problem. When it solves the debt problem, then we will stop blaming the technical and management people at ECG and VRA for the problem that government caused.
Yes, Mr. Jacob Osebua.
You see, what I think we need to understand is the cyclical of the water level, because our base was hydropower, and that is why intermittently as a nation we face such problems. But the most important thing, the president was mentioning about the fact that they brought in about 850 megawatts. Now we're talking about affordability, and that is why I initially stated that what we need is energy conservation. I came out together with my mates and together with the Energy Commission. We did a sample during 2014, that's with your free of campaign, and that one could save us between 50 to 70 megawatts a day. And so together with my mates in the US, we developed a device which is none in the world, such that out of using these devices on fridges, we can just save over 200 megawatts at no cost. And so we need to look at these energy generation mix together with the affordability, which is very, very important. But we are not doing that as a nation.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Just a quick point of information. To resolve the problem, we have asked that prepaid meters be deployed on government facilities, except for emergencies like hospitals, schools, and some other facilities. Every other, government facility, we've asked that prepaid meters be put so that we're sure that these organizations are paying their bills. What happens is the electricity component of their budget is contained in their goods and services. But often when goods and services are released, they're often used for other pressing problems rather than paying. But then if you have prepaid meters, then it becomes a first charge that they do so that our utilities can continue to function. But one of the things we're doing too is to refinance the debt of the utilities so that we free up their balance sheets. Government is guaranteeing that process because we know those utilities belong to government, and so we're taking responsibility for that.
Thank you very much. Dr. Edwin Mahama.
It's complex, and we must look at also efficiency and the issue of corruption. I say efficiency because ECG, for example, is not conscientiously collecting its bills. There is a lot of stolen power. People collect illegally, and they are doing nothing about it. And also, as always, they went and formed another company called Gridco. And that company, in my view, is not improving the situation. What we can do, instead of privatizing ECG, is to ask other players. We have independent power producers. We can also have independent power distributors. And ECG will set up. And then this issue of them not looking where their power is going, people are connecting illegally, they are not sending their bills, all of that will be reduced and everybody will benefit from efficiency.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, candidates. Can we give a round of applause to our candidates seated here? At this point, we will go on a short break and we'll return with the next segment of this program. This is the GBC NCCE presidential debates, of course, with support from Star Ghana. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.